So the last part of stage 2 that I want to talk about are the interventions that we will do our best to avoid if they're not medically necessary. And so one that I want to talk about is perineal support. Perineal support is something that you can ask your caregiver about when you're interviewing caregivers, and just ask what they do for perineal support, if they give it any energy. I talked earlier about what my caregivers did while I was giving birth to make sure that I didn't tear. And what you're really trying to do is avoid an episiotomy. An episiotomy is where the caregiver cuts through the opening of the vagina, the perineum, in order to create a bigger opening. And if you can avoid that, avoid it, right? Your body, if it tears, it's going to heal much more easily than going through all of those layers of skin with a cut. Of course, if there's a medical emergency, that's a different story, but that's part of why you ask, right? If your caregiver is giving you an optional episiotomy, you can decline it if it's not medically necessary. You may tear, you may not. But being able to choose your position, being on your hands and knees or on a birth stool, you are so much less likely to tear than being on your back. So there are also techniques for doing perineal stretching. So you can find that if you Google it. You'll find options for learning about perineal stretching. Basically, it's like putting your fingers in your mouth and stretching, but you're doing it with your perineum, and you can have your partner do that. And it's just really to get your mind around this. Your perineum already is built to stretch, but it's like, can I relax when I feel that feeling? You know, can I wrap my brain around the fact that this is the exit for my baby, that it's all going to work just fine. So that is part of doing perineal stretching, is just part of your own visualization, your own, experience, comfort in your own body of what you're about to go do. And I want to take a mention here of sometimes caregivers and other people can make comments about the size of your pelvis. They can make comments about the size of your body versus the size of your baby. The shape of your uterus, right? And often a caregiver can say something in just a passing comment, and a mom will clamp on it with fear and hold on to it like, oh God, something's wrong with me, or this is not a good match, right? My baby and the shape of my uterus are not a good match. And I want to tell you what my midwives told me when I asked about this when I was pregnant. And they said, there are 2 sizes of uterus: adequate and the size you can drive a truck through. And we're just going to see which size you are when you give birth. But that's important. Adequate, right? So what that means is, assuming you have a healthy pregnancy, and the way you know that is you've been going and getting prenatal care, right? No big giant red flags have arisen. Assuming you've had a healthy pregnancy, your body is going to grow a baby that is just the right size for your body. And so trusting that is really important. And sometimes mamas are told that their body's too small, their baby's too big, their baby's too small. One of my dear friends, who's teeny tiny, was told that she had a 9-pound baby, and she freaked, right? And so she was induced a week early, and upon birth, her beautiful child was 6 pounds. I mean, that's a giant discrepancy at a very well-known hospital in New York City. So, we don't always know what is happening on the inside, but trusting that your body is doing what it needs to do, and growing a baby that your body can birth. So, I mean, if someone had told me I was going to have a 9-pound baby, I think I would have freaked out and refused to push. I had no idea that my baby was that big. My stepkids were both 7 pounds. My brother was 7 pounds. I was 7 pounds. Like, all the babies have been 7 pounds in my family. And so seeing this big fat baby, I couldn't believe it. But then look at what happened to my body, right? I didn't tear. Like, everything was completely fine. And so I probably would have been completely stressed about pushing a baby out that big, um, for no reason. So sometimes ignorance is bliss, but when you're given a comment like that, right, just remind yourself that your body has deep, deep wisdom that sometimes our medical technology doesn't have, and that we can trust this body to know how to birth our baby instead of grasping on to unfounded fears and getting stuck in the loop of anticipatory fear and all the catecholamines and tension. So I say this because if you do hear a comment about your baby's size, your pelvic size, anything like that that gives you fear, just take a moment to come back to a place of trust. Trusting your body, trusting your baby, trusting that they are working together. And instead of grasping onto that anticipatory, unfounded fear, come back to working with your body and trusting that it is born to do this. You were born to do this, and your baby is going to be born with grace.